Okay, we ready, Mr. Gavin? Is everybody ready to go?
We are good to go.
Okay, are you guys ready?
Sure.
All right, let's do this. Uh, I've done quite a few podcasts, and I honestly want to tell you, I am more excited about doing this one with these two gentlemen that are on here than any one that I've ever done. And it's because the other people just interviewed me about anatomy, and I say the same things over and over and over. These guys, I'm a student, and I have so much to learn. So that's got me really, really excited. So the other thing is, we're going to do something different tonight that I've never done. Instead of doing a normal podcast, this is actually the three of us getting together, and we're going to be brainstorming about an event that we're going to be doing in Texas. Because what happened is, we're going to Texas, we're going to a pig ranch for up to 4 days. We're going to shoot a lot of pigs, do all kinds of experiments with broadheads and arrows and deflections and deer dropping or pigs dropping. And but we don't know how to get it organized, what we're going to do first, all of the details. So I said, let's get together, let's have a group call so we can see where everybody's coming from, what they're bringing to the party and what they want to do, but let's do it in the form of a podcast. So to me, what's neat is the people that are listening to this, they're going to get to hear us basically thinking out loud, because what we're going to talk about, we've never rehearsed with each other at all. So that's kind of neat to me. So what I need to do is introduce these two very intelligent gentlemen. So I'll start out with the top gentleman, I'll start with the top, which is Gavin D. LaGarza, my editor from Texas, the professional pig slayer and the know-it-all that takes care of this old man, me. And then below, well, that's the truth. That's the truth. I'm not saying anything that's not the truth, Gavin. You're very smart. Then below him is Corey Haas. I met Corey Haas actually at a trailhead out in Utah this year, and he owns what's called the Bow Hunter's Bible, which basically is anything and everything you want to know about arrows and bows and tunings and how to tie knots and all that. That's his project. And then below him is, as far as I know, Eric Newman is possibly one of, if not the most knowledgeable people that there is anywhere on details on arrows and arrow flights and momentum and kinetic energy and mass and inertia and weight, all these different things that come into play with all these details. Eric is that guy. In fact, Eric's done so many studies, a lot of these he's never even published. So, and Eric, what is the name of your business?
It's P&L Testers, which just stands for Physics Never Lies.
And a lot of that stuff you have done, a lot of the research you've done, you don't even have that up on there yet.
No, there's a lot of it. I've got hundreds of stuff I've done. I've got maybe a tenth of it on my webpage. So yeah, I just don't put much of it out.
And how I found out about Eric is I was talking to possibly the lead expert on bows, if there is such a thing in America. And I don't want to mention his name because if they're not part of this podcast, I don't want to do that. And he had a bunch of information that we were talking about on arrow flights, all this stuff that I want to know about. And he wouldn't reveal it. He says he has hundreds of thousands of dollars tied into it. And Gavin knows this is true. And I said, well, if you're not going to let me see it, yet you're refuting what other people are saying, where do I go to get information? And he said, Eric Newman. And Eric Newman knows Corey, and I knew Corey. It wasn't from the end time I read those texts. We were talking to each other an hour or two later that same day. And ever since, we talk every week. So I'm super, super, super excited. So what I want to do is try to do something I'm good at, try to shut up and let the two of you both say, what do you think we want, that you guys want to bring to the table to accomplish in Texas? So, and I know I'd like to start out with Eric if I could.
Ooh, I'm pretty open. On my side, since I like looking at physics, it would be nice to be able to test some things like two arrows of unequal mass, looking at equal momentum at impact, and possibly also equal kinetic energy at impact. I've done lots of tests on just standard test media, but it'd be nice to do some with animals as well. So
You
we
know,
can see
you have a 500-pound machine that you can bring that you use to do some of this testing. I don't understand what that machine is and what it does.
what I've got and actually Corey Haas named it for me. So I built a shooting machine. From that shooting machine, I could do anything we want to do to test arrows, and test dynamic efficiency of bows, just whatever we need to do. If we need to test arrow drop, time in flight, even where we've been talking about looking at time for an animal to drop. Gavin's been doing a lot of work there. I can set this machine up based off the time. It'll do the same thing. So it'll automatically shoot. Once it's set up, I just hit one button. It's going to draw it and shoot the arrow, and we can do all our measurements from there.
Now, one of the things that Gavin has been working on is the time how fast a deer drops.
Yes,
And of
sir.
course, we know they vary, so you can't answer that question for sure. But we can take many animals and come up with probabilities. And then on both ends of the spectrum, how fast they can. Of course, sometimes they don't drop at all. So you said, Eric, that you could set up with a solenoid a target that you could simulate that drop time that would somehow correspond that when we would shoot, say, my bow, which I just got back from hunting. That's why I'm dressed so appropriately here. This is my great bow, my gearhead bow at 54 pounds. You could simulate that when this bow goes off, that target would drop at the rate that a deer would be somehow. And you think you can do that, Eric?
Oh, absolutely. That's pretty easy. What I'll do is because my machine's ran by a computer, so I'll just program it so that once it reaches the back limit, I'll fire. Once it fires, I'll start another timer, and we'll set that time based on Gavin's testing. And that whatever we set that in is when it'll release that target. So I can release the target at the exact same time we shoot, up to days. It won't really matter. I can set it at whatever time he wants.
So could we shoot it with my bow at 54 pounds and I think Corey shooting at 70?
Sure, I can. I'll just set any bow up. The machine is set up so that once we put it in there, I put it in remote position. So I set the limits. I have back limits. So we just come up, pull the draw bow, set the stops. I just adjust the limits, and then once we're at that limit set, then I just go back to auto mode, and then it'll just take over. So we just load it, hit the start button, and it'll always come to that exact same spot every.
Now, I want to tell everybody, and I'm going to try not to talk so much, but the reason I'm dressed in my hunting clothes, I just got in. I got a phone call yesterday. Do you want to come shoot a deer? From a guy that I led to Jesus. You guys know I'm that Christian guy that talks to everybody about Jesus. And I led him 50 years ago, and he's a big time outfitter. I shot my first deer with him. Doris shot her first deer with him. And he invited me to come, but another guy who's a great shot, he shot 27 300s in a row in Madison, Wisconsin, but he's got MS now and he can't walk. But he did get up there. He's using a crossbow. So we were in a blind today. And this, I want everybody to listen to this because this is the real world. The corn pile was 23 yards away. The deer were coming in. He was in his chair and it was creaking. Them deer run away and come back. Other ones run away and come back because we've got a lot of snow and cold here. So the deer come into the corn this time of the year better. So with his crossbow, it's not a problem. But with me at 54 pounds, those deer were wired. I mean, they were scared of anything. So all I'm doing is thinking about what would be the arrow that I would want to use because it was 23 yards. What would be the arrow that could beat them with my bow? But then I go too light, then my broadhead's not going to penetrate through so much. So then do I go to a different broadhead? So all of this stuff that you guys are talking about and going to talk about, man, I was right in the middle of it tonight because I might be able to go back there and hunt again. But then, like, what arrow? What broadhead? I can't change my weight. I can barely. This is how I'm going to hunt in Texas. I'm going to sun to the ground like this on a bucket, but I got to get my bow up like this to pull it back and come down. That's just the way it is because of my shoulder. So, with that in mind, tonight I got to see the real world. So that's what I want to know for my situation. So, but
Well, there's. Oh, go ahead.
Eric and I have talked about your setup and whatnot and some tests that we could possibly do. But what we're talking about with what Eric's going to do with the solenoids, and once it fires, it can drop a target, and we could mess with that. Gavin, you've been pretty deep into the reactions of the typical white-tailed deer lately, and we've already talked about my effective yardage calculator and how I figured it in with the speed of sound, the average reaction time. I think before we head down there, we have to really get the average reaction time. And I'd be curious to know what you came up with from studying the tapes. The shot happens. There's the sound of the shot. There's the movement that the deer are seeing. And we're talking about an alert deer that's facing the archer, okay? We need to really narrow that down of when that pin's going to get pulled and when that target's going to drop. Whether from the moment of shot, that's a quarter of a second. Before we head down there, we have to figure that out. And that may vary between species. That may vary between parts of the country, right? You get to Texas, you could have more skittish deer. Midwestern white-tailed deer, they might be a little bit slower. You go to Hawaii, axis deer, I mean, so on and so forth, right? But talking about tests to do down there, if we can get that set up with Eric, and I know Eric can do that, I think that's going to be awesome. That's going to really show us how beating the reaction is crucial. And it's, it's not going to be talk anymore. It's going to be right in front of us. We're going to have the video. We're going to see where these different arrows hit. Eric and I have talked about you, Brian, and your lighter setup. I put in 55 pounds. You said 54. It's pretty close, though. So we talk about for hitting a white-tailed deer, where we intend to hit them, which to me, that's behind the front leg to where all that you're penetrating is ribs and then the innards. It doesn't take much if your bow's tuned and your arrow's flying straight. But if you were concerned, we could go down the road of talking about heavier arrows and momentum and kinetic energy versus the momentum and everything that results from changing that arrow build. And Eric talked about, because me and Eric have talked about a kinetic energy dump. Eric, do you want to touch on that a little bit and then tell him some of the real world experiments that like Joel's done and some of the results that you've seen also?
Yeah. So what we're going to have to worry about on your arrow is kinetic energy is what's going to control the depth of penetration. The momentum is what's going to control the acceleration rate or your rate of deceleration. But if an arrow is too light, you'll have a quick energy dump, no penetration.
You mean energy dump when the arrow hits the animal?
Yes. What you got is everything is based on Newtonian law. If we have a certain amount of resistance that's going to be applied to your arrow. If that resistance is ever greater than the energy of your arrow, penetration stops. So we got to make sure that you've got enough energy to overcome that resistance of that animal. Now, weight is not a real big factor. Your broadhead type is more of a factor.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
You can take best arrow in the world and put the wrong broadhead on it, and you're not going to penetrate. So broadheads are a real factor. With you shooting 55 pounds, and we probably need to visit. I'll get with Corey on this too on the top of broadhead. I would not probably shoot a mechanical at 55 pounds. Not saying that it won't work, because I promise you it will.
Now, what about this? When I was down in Ohio, I told everybody knows me, I'm an Exodus guy, right?
Okay.
Broadheads are religion. We've all got our own beliefs. I like Exodus. To me, that's the standard. I know what this does. I'm going to compare everything to. When I was down there, my buddy Brian Tanner, who I have the utmost respect, they use these mega beats.
Okay.
And I don't like them. They're the flimsiest things I ever did see. But that's personal. But everybody down there, they swear by them. I'm not kidding. But since I had a smaller bow poundage, he had me use a deadbeat. So this is an 1.5-inch 3-blade versus a 2-inch on the Megabeat. This is called the deadbeat. But this, I don't, what is the Exodus, Gavin? Is it 1.25 inches? It's
Inch and
pretty
a quarter,
close.
inch and an eighth. It's one of those, yeah.
Yeah, it's right in there. So
Well,
this is kind of what I'm looking at.
I've got a friend here in Texas, and I may be backwards. Her arrow, I believe, is around 295 grains. It's just under 300 grains, and she's shooting about 265 feet per second. And I may have them numbers backwards. She uses that Exodus broadhead. She has no problems getting through hogs.
Well, okay, now you got the number again. You got numbers when a guy doesn't understand them. We just know pounds of the bow. So
So
what in
with your
draw length?
with your bow at 55 pounds, even with that bow right there, with that Exodus broadhead, as long as you're not hitting any major bone on that hog, you're not going to have any problem with that broadhead.
Now I watched this last week on TV. I think I sent it to you, Gavin. A guy had an 80-pound bow, and he hit a hog with I got to. I'm careful on the brand, but it looked like a Rage. It was a 2-blade, and it showed it in replay, just bounce off it. I don't even know it totally bounced off it, just
Sure,
like it hit a steel plate.
sure.
80-pound bow.
Probably one of our biggest issues is people want to correlate things with the draw weight of a bow. 80-pound bow, yes, it's going to be more than what your 55-pound bow. But all that means is with his setup, when he hit that animal, the resistance or the resistance force that was applied back to that arrow was greater than that energy of that arrow. So it stopped it. Absolutely.
But that's because of the shield on the pig, though. I
Ab-
mean, that's the difference. If they have a shield or not, that's two different things.
Well, it could be the shield. It could have been the bone. It could have been the pig moving. Pigs move. Pigs don't just stand there. They're
Hmm.
people think that pigs just stand there broadside. Pigs never stop moving. Or the ones that I've met never stop moving.
That's what Gavin says. Yeah.
So what happens to you on pigs is when you release, I promise you, you're not going to hit that pig where you think you are because he's moving the whole time. He's moving. You're just trying to shoot him at the point you think he's going to be where he's at. So while he's moving, when that arrow hits him, he's moving. He's going to catch that arrow. So you could take an arrow that's 80 foot-pounds of kinetic energy, or even with a 650 grain arrow, you may not get a pass through because that animal is going to catch that arrow. It'll trap it.
What do you mean by that, Eric?
When that animal twists, his muscle reactions and he tenses up, it'll just stop that arrow. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you just want to get all the way to the other side. But to control some of that, you don't shoot a big broadhead. Again, I got a friend that just killed a water buffalo in Argentina. At I don't know, that animal was about 2,500 pounds. Now his first shot, he used an iron will with a 579 grain arrow and blew completely through it at 50 yards. But he put a second arrow in it with a mechanical broadhead and buried it to the fletchings at 94 yards. So, you know, the problem with testing with animals is you can take 10 pigs, 10 arrows that are identical, and you're going to get 10 different results.
Here's a big factor also. What state is the animal in? Is it relaxed? Is it dropping? Is it beyond the drop and moving and contorting? I've shot deer to where 70 pounds and 25 yards. I hit the deer. I beat the reaction, but he started the reaction. He carried the arrow 3 yards with him before it fully passed through. I say it's like shooting a relaxed deer is like shooting a block target. Pull out the arrow easy, right? Shooting a deer that's moving and flexing and contorting, it's like shooting a brand new Reinhardt target. So if you've ever buried a brand new, a 70-pound bow, you shot an arrow into a brand new Reinhardt, Rhino Brute or whatever, they are a bear to pull out sometimes until that target gets broke in. Now, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you a button buck that I killed. And the reason why I shot it was the first one I ever got on tape, okay? So I'm going to shoot it. I want you to watch the animal. I'll tell you what I did. And then I'm going to tell you about my setup. I'll let you guess the setup. And then we'll take it from there. And this is going to, let me see here.
Oh, this is pretty cool, Corey. It's exciting.
Yeah, this is going to go into the talk that we're having about poundage, arrow weight, broadhead, all this stuff. And how sometimes you could throw that right out the window. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Press and play.
How far away is the deer?
say about 27 yards. 25, 27.
That's no button buck. That looks like a typical yearling.
Well, yeah, a little spike or whatever.
Spike, yeah. That's not a button buck.
Hell, that's 22 years ago, Brian.
No, make me jealous. I'd take him.
Okay.
Okay.
Shot him, okay. Now let me.
I would say you missed by the way you ran away.
Let's see. I wish I could blow this up, but I don't really know how. Okay, he's gonna stop. You're gonna put that front right leg forward. Boom. It was a good shot. I think I caught the opposite leg a little bit, and the deer died. Okay, the deer died. Didn't get a full pass through, right? Plenty of the arrow was sticking out. Let's take a guess. Based off the results, can anybody guess how many pounds I was shooting? How fast the arrow? What kind of broadhead? Anything? No.
Well, we know this is quite a few years ago, so that kind of narrows it down a little bit.
Okay.
And back then, people didn't shoot 70 pounds. It used to be 60 pounds, I think people shot back in the day.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, Corey was shooting about 80 pounds.
So I shot that spike with a 100-pound Matthews Custom Safari
What?
with a Muzzy chisel point broadhead 3-blade with an ACC 371. I had to be close upper 400s in grains, Eric. I'd have to guess with that 371 ACC, but 125 grain tip on there. Now, I think what had happened with that, I think I was having a little bit of fletching interference with my drop away rest. Back then, the drop away rests were kind of newer. I thought I had an NAP 4000 drop away. But I think I discovered that I was having a little bit of fletching interference, and maybe, just maybe, when that arrow hit it, the flight wasn't perfectly corrected.
But wouldn't it be stabilized at 25 yards, though?
It might not be.
Yeah, it depends. You know,
Really?
if you're having fletching interference, I mean, that porpoising might take a while to correct. And that particular bow, Matthews Custom Safari, it sounded like a 22 when it was shot. It was a loud bow.
Yeah.
The animal started the reaction. I hit him good. He didn't go far. But I just wanted to show that's like my ace up the sleeve. If anybody's talking about, penetration and arrow setup and poundage and kinetic energy and momentum, you won't find anybody today except for a very few people that can match the setup that I had back then, and I didn't even get a full pass through. So, what could we take from that? Well, arrow flight is paramount, for one. Point of impact is paramount. I think I was up forward a little bit, maybe hit the opposite shoulder. But the guys that are saying, hey, you shoot this much momentum and this heavy of an arrow and this much pounds, you go through any leg, whatever. No, not the case. But I just wanted to show that because I've had that in the vault since 2004. So I thought,
That's hard to believe, Corey.
I'm telling you.
What did the broadhead look like after you took it out?
I don't remember, to be honest with you. I don't know what I did last week, but it was probably mangled a little bit. Any time you bury it in some bone on the other side, it's going to show some wear. But like Brian Tanner said, I'm just like him. I'm a one-use broadhead guy. I buy it. I put a brand new one on that arrow. I put it through an animal. Whether or not I shoot that at another deer, I don't really care. I can afford to buy another $15 broadhead. But it did the job.
Where are you getting $15 broadheads at?
He's a union worker.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah.
He's in Illinois. They got all that crooked money there.
Well, what you need to do, Corey, is when you shoot that broadhead, when you pull it off your target or your arrow, just send it to me because I'll reshoot it.
Well, I got a whole tray of them back here. I was pulling them out the last time we talked.
Nah, I reshoot all my broadheads unless I tear them all up.
It still doesn't make sense. Does that make sense to you? I mean, it's easy we sit here and say, but 100 pounds with a Muzzy on a year and a half old buck, and you should have blown through anything. If you hit the humerus bone, they just shatter.
Well, again, you're trying to correlate the bow with it being at 100 pounds.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, of course. That's that. If I get
Yeah,
hit by Mike Tyson, he's going to send me through the world more than if my wife slaps me, right?
yep. But you're not hitting that animal with 100 pounds.
Well, why
So
aren't you?
because that's not what that energy of that arrow is.
Well, I think I twanged out some energy because of the improper arrow flight, for one. Another
So
thing is it
your
did fully
video's back.
pass through the cavity, but I think I buried in the far leg there.
Yeah.
Now, I want to show you how hunting is unpredictable, right? About 20 minutes later, I get this guy to walk in. You ready to watch another one with a completely different result?
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Here it goes. Oh, I gotta click this one.
I see a tree.
Ho ho! Look at the size of that buck.
He's an old guy. Look at the wrinkles in his hide. He was once bigger.
Oh, here.
25-yard shot. I had a buddy filming, and you can see the blood coming out at full pass through. Exited the front left back part of the shoulder, and my buddy didn't get the death wobble. He wasn't trained in the finer art of filming deer, but got him. Same setup. A couple minutes later, and that was that.
But
That,
but you didn't hit any shoulder bones.
well,
Correct.
that right there is a prime example of why testing in animals is extremely hard. And you're going to see that when you're down here in Texas. Because he took two deer, which one of them is tremendously bigger, and that one had to pass through and the other one didn't. Okay? So there are things that happen that causes all kinds of issues. Could have been arrow flight, could have been Corey tweaked the bow, could have been that the smaller deer reacted different. So again, that's the problem. You can't just say he shot a 100-pound bow and why did he not get a pass through and why he did with the other deer. That comes onto the target. There's just so many things that can happen that no matter what, you're just not going to get a pass through. It just
Well,
happens.
well, the logical question is this, because the people on the other side of the fence would be saying if he shot a single bevel, I call them solid broadheads. That's I want to bring up categories, you guys, about broadheads if we get to that. That would have zipped right through that bone, whatever he did with
No,
that. Do you believe that's true or not?
no. Single bevels. The thing about broadheads, single bevel is designed to split a bone. Um,
Okay.
you can take a double bevel and blow through the bone. It all comes down to the amount of resistance force that was applied to that arrow and the amount of energy and momentum that arrow has. If the resistance force is equal or greater to the energy, that arrow is going to stop. It doesn't matter what you got on the end of it. So the broadheads do make a difference. Um, does the single bevel over a double bevel better? No, I truly do not believe it is. And I shoot single bevels. I love single bevels. They're easy to sharpen,
Oh, you do?
but if you're not hitting an animal where you purposely need that single bevel, like in bone, there's no advantage. There's actually a disadvantage. You actually got more resistance on a double single bevel than you do a double bevel if they're the same size. Because a single bevel is trying to rotate. Now, not spin, but rotate through that animal. Well, that's drag. That's increased drag.
Yeah, right. That's why Brian Tanner doesn't believe in single bevels because it
Yeah,
causes more resistance. You know. Now I got to tell you
true.
guys one thing. We're Gavin wanted to keep this short,
Oh,
and we're all good talkers, and we have not. We've stayed. We've not got on track on what we want to accomplish down there from both of your individual perspectives. So when we come back, what do you want to accomplish, Corey, and what do you want to accomplish, Eric?
Well, when we're down there, I think doing the experiments with the dropping target with Eric's machine with the solenoid, based off of my estimated reaction time, Gavin's estimated reaction time, That's all going to come into play with how he sets up the pin to be pulled and the target to drop, and to see how the different speeds impact. If we have a disc drop, we could just have like a frisbee drop or something, like a foam circle drop, and see how far off of the intended point of impact is. I think that's going to speak volumes right there. Eric was talking about matching momentum and kinetic energy, right, Eric? And you know,
I wouldn't even mind looking at FOC. There's a big push that FOC increases penetration.
I read that today.
Okay, so
Yep.
and I'm trying to do this without saying anybody's name. In the big study where they tested FOC, he actually explains and actually has you test in a foam target. It's in 2008, part 7. The reason FOC increased penetration for him, in my opinion, is because it is for FOC is to help an arrow to recover or to stabilize in flight. So if you have an arrow that's hitting at an angle, you're killing penetration. So if you need an arrow to recover quickly, FOC helps to do this. Now, there's other things that happen, but if you've got an arrow that's flying crooked at 20 yards, then you're going to kill penetration. If you can get that arrow to be corrected by 10 yards, then at 20 yards, you're going to hit the animal square. So if you have an arrow that you need FOC to improve that stabilization, then yeah, increasing FOC is going to help you improve or increase your chances of penetration. But if you have an arrow that is flying straight out of a compound bow now, it's not trad, out of a compound bow, FOC is not going to help you increase penetration at all. Your arrow's already in recovered state, so you don't need it.
I do agree with that 110%. And the reason why I'm
Yeah,
saying that is this: I just want to show here. Here's an arrow, right?
yeah.
The majority of the weight's up front. Okay, if this arrow is corrected in flight, once it hits, all that weight, because it's flying good, is pounding forward, set right through the center of that tip. So to me, this is the light end back here. I don't really care if the arrow weighs the same. All that weight is coming right here at the tip, and it's going to punch right through. Like Eric said, sometimes people believe that the higher FOC can stabilize and flight a little bit better. I think sometimes extreme FOC makes a bow touchier to tune, but I don't think you're going to see a huge difference. If you took an arrow with lower FOC and it was tuned perfectly and you're driving that nail straight, and you take one with higher FOC and you got it tuned perfectly and they're both the same weight, I think you're going to get the same
You'll
result.
get
Now, Gavin's going to be chewing me out because I can't get you guys onto the big game plan. You guys live in the weeds. I think you're one of the
Hold,
bass you want to catch it, never come out of the weeds. You can't get your bait down to them. Now, Corey said something else, which I have to apologize on again. He wanted to test deflection because, as we all know, our buddy used these broadheads, and he had 2 deflections this year on the mega meet. 2 of them. One, he angled down and it went back up through the backbone. It took the deer a long time to die. The other one, it was quartering away. He hit it and he never went into the cavity. He believes it was to do with just the fact that it was a mechanical period, nothing to do with this brand. I don't know. But that deflection, when you thought to test that, Corey, I thought, ding, 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 ding. I would
Well,
sure
yeah,
like the
for
difference.
sure. And that would be a phenomenal test. We'd have to figure out how we're going to set up that deflection test. If it's wooden dowel
Yeah.
rods, up through foam, and then
Well, what about these dead pigs we're going to have? I thought that's the whole purpose. Would it help, instead of putting the pig on a table to shoot them, if we made a 2x4 frame
and
and we
hung it.
cut a hole under the backbone and we just run a bunch of ropes underneath him and we hang him up?
Just tie a rope around his ears and his tail and just hang him.
Well, but I mean, to get the quartering shot, we want to get him in a real life
Yeah.
position. We want to be able to do a string on the ground, find what 90 degrees is, go halfway in between. We know that's a 45, because that's what I do in my deer here. I make a graph on it, so I know the exact angle to the degree. Because one thing we're going to find out, Corey, which I haven't sent you the pictures of, the ribs on a deer at the 11th ribs, they bulge out and then they go in real fast. So what rib you hit and what angle is completely different. And the farthest rib that sticks out, that's 11th rib. And if you take that at 45 degrees versus other angles. So it's not as simple as the gap between the ribs and they're all the same. They're not, because once you get past where the diaphragm is, the stomach and the liver sits in there, and God made it where there's more room for that to move in there.
That's
So
the thing. Or just real quick here, Eric.
yeah.
So to me, the main factor in deflection are the ribs. That's the main reason for me. So I mean, if you wanted to do a test, we kill a hog, we could take that slab of ribs off, hang that slab of ribs, shoot through it. Then you don't have to worry about the innards, whatever behind it, and you could get even amplified deflection beyond that. Now, that being said, a tooth of the arrow can deflect if it hits the side of the rib with the right blade. A two-blade rage, oriented the right way, cannot deflect because it misses the ribs because it's vertical. So we're going to have to do multiple shots and take the average of deflection, but we for surely can do that. And I would suggest, to simplify things, if you kill a hog, you could take 2 slabs of ribs, left side, right side. You could hang them. You could have a target behind there. We could figure out a way to have an aim point beyond the ribs, shoot, and see how far off that bullseye, that arrow hit, measure the deflection, and see if we have repeatable results with different broadheads, so where we can draw a little bit of conclusion on how much deflection a specific broadhead.
Now, are you going to be able to have the cameras? Because you guys are bringing down these real expensive 1,000 frame per second cameras. We're going to have 3 of them down there besides Gavin and I with our standard Sony 120 frames per second cameras. Are you going to be able to have them so they're going to show the broadheads hitting on the animal itself? We're going to have the filming of that so we can see. Because again, I got my Exodus here and I got the Mega Meat. So these are the 2 that are right in front of me that I actually had in the woods if I was going to hunt today.
Eric and I have the same Sony camera that can do up to 1,000 frames.
Oh, okay.
And I have the one that could go up to, I don't know, 15,000 frames a second or more. You lose quality the higher you go.
Sure.
But we can have one on facing the front of the ribs. I could have one on the back catching if we hang the slab of ribs, we could catch it on the way out, which will give us even better footage of what's actually happening there. And I think it'd be pretty cool to see. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the thing to remember or to think about with deflection is we can control deflection with momentum or broadhead. So we're going to have to decide about that, because the broadhead's actually, if the broadhead hits and if it don't bite, of course it's going to deflect. But if we got enough momentum, we may be able to slow the deceleration rate enough that if we don't cause it to turn, we can actually cause it to still bite and drive through.
Why don't we have a light arrow and a heavy arrow set up with the same broadhead? We'll get the average deflection with the light one. We'll put the heavy arrow on and see if that does show a difference and less deflection. I think the tail end of the arrow, I mean, is pretty light.
It's going to whip.
And it's going to whip.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how heavy you go. You may have a little bit of less deflection, but I think that blade on bone and that changing of trajectory is inevitable, and you're going to get deflection.
I'm assuming it is for sure going to be the type of broadhead. Because some broadheads, if they're not hit right, they'll catch it right under the skin of an animal and they'll slide right down them ribs. I'm sure Gavin's seen some of that on some of his.
With like an extreme angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I told the story about that one I shot at that one farm with the Spitfire when Brian Tanner was talking about from deploying mechanicals. And
Yeah.
I won't ever shoot them again because I had a bad experience. Same thing. One of the blades caught, redirected the path of the arrow, and I believe I think I got penetration in it, but it went down towards the rear end of it. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a cool test, right? Different.
Oh, yeah.
Same
Oh, I shot a hog a few years ago, and that's what happened to me. He twisted, so when it went in, he ran off on me. And I thought, man, I hit him in the right spot. So a couple of weeks later, I killed him again. So when I shot him again, Didn't kill him twice. Anyway, so when I was cutting him open, I found that other broadhead. And what he had done, it had slid in between, and it was in between the shield and that muscle. So that's exactly what I did on that one. I hit him too much of an angle, and that broadhead just slid right down between the meat and that shield. Didn't penetrate.
I wanted to show one thing here, and this ties in with you, Brian Johnson, and Gavin, things that we've talked about, and Eric, we've actually talked about this. We're talking about doing tests with matching kinetic energy and raising the momentum. Now, I just want to show this here. Brian Johnson, I believe that this is pretty close to your setup. Correct me if I'm wrong. You don't know your arrow weight, but we're going to guess probably around like 410 grains, 28-inch draw length. Draw weight I got you at 55. Your IBO on the T24 gearhead is probably around 325. So if we look at this, we got estimated arrow speed of about 252. Me and Brian Tanner guessed 250 to 260, so this is showing that that's pretty close, right? So the momentum is 0.46 slugs. Your kinetic energy is 58.2. Now, what if we lowered your draw weight? This is all being done just to match the kinetic energy while raising the momentum. Okay, so I got to drop you down in draw weight, and I got to raise your arrow weight to 610. Okay. Now, what we have here, we have matching kinetic energy. It went from 58.21 foot-pounds of kinetic energy to 58.23, pretty darn close, right? Your slugs went up from 0.46 slugs to 0.56. That's a pretty good change there. But what I want to show you is the speed difference. We went from 252 feet per second to 207 feet per second. So I just wanted to put this out there. Eric and I talked about this, and we're talking about, well, could the momentum help us? In which, Eric, you said, yeah, you think it may give you a slight benefit, initial kinetic energy dump, right? But look at the speed difference there. That's considerable.
The thing that we still have to remember, and again, there's a lot of people out there that want to look at momentum. I look at momentum. It's still the easiest term, or the easiest way to understand it is, again, kinetic energy controls the depth of penetration. Momentum controls the rate of deceleration. Now, that's funny to say it that way because increasing arrow weight, you're not increasing your kinetic energy that much, but you are increasing momentum. So why people see this increase in penetration is, and they think it's momentum, is because that's the only number they're seeing is changing. But what has happened is you slowed the rate of deceleration down. So you're just allowing that arrow to use its energy more efficiently. Now, how much of a difference in penetration? Who knows? It could be 5%, it could be 20%. And that will never be, you'll never be able to really test that. We would probably, I don't know, we'd probably have to shoot 100 pigs at least to be able to get an average to see what the difference is. All I can tell you is based on physics, increasing arrow weight will increase penetration. But how much? It may not be enough to matter. The biggest thing is if you're already getting a pass through with a 400 grain arrow, why waste your money to build a 650 grain arrow?
Well, let me bring this real practical, and you guys don't have to answer this, but down in Texas, if I go back and hunt the spot I was at tonight, these deer are jittery and jumpy. I'd be at 23 yards. So I am wanting to have that arrow go as fast as I can. So one of the questions that I have is how much later is that arrow going to get there with a heavier arrow than a lighter one? And with that in mind, along with that, at that length of time difference, how much more can that animal drop in that length of time? And that's why one of the things that I wanted us to do when we were down there, because remember, my deal, guys, is to make it simple for the common person like me to understand this. So that's where I wanted to put those orange cones they put on the side of the road there, and then set all the arrows on them So when one actually hits the pig, show how far back that other one is in flight before it gets there. And then also try to show how much more with your dropping, how much more it would drop by the time it actually gets there. So
We can.
you think we can do that?
I don't know. I'd have to really sit down and think about that. Time in flight's easy to do with a lab radar, and I'll bring my lab radar, and we can look at that. We can actually see radar. You can download from the lab radar, and it'll tell us the time it took to whatever distance we are.
And can we bring that from that? Can we bring that back at real life 23 yards when that arrow hit the fastest one? Because Corey shoots lighter arrows than Gavin and Brian thinks that he should. I mean, he's on the light side. So his arrow is going to get there faster than
Mm-hmm.
somebody else that's got a lighter bow, so they will go with a heavier arrow for more penetration, but the arrow is going to get there slower.
Mm-hmm.
So the animal is going to drop more.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make it visual to see when Corey's arrow is hitting the pig, how far behind is Brian Johnson's arrow going?
So
If I go with a heavier arrow with a broadhead because I need more penetration, so I want a heavier arrow.
Gavin's going to have to do a lot of editing to do that.
Well, but if we think we could have it to just simulate it, if we could go back and actually put them out in a yard, these cones, if we think we have that distance there, then somebody could actually see that. Because to me, guys, I'm wanting to make this with a common person that's not into the physics, they're not into all the detail weeds that you guys are in. How does it relate to them?
Well, if Eric's machine gets made the way we want to make it, we can
We'll do
have
that.
a disc that's 3 feet in diameter with a bullseye on it. I shoot mine. Where did it hit in relation to the bullseye? Where does the heavier setup hit it?
Yeah.
Here's your measurable difference. There's something you could show people and say, look,
Well,
220 feet per second hits here, 300 feet per second hits here. At this distance with the
Are you guys going to be able to tell me what arrows that I should buy before I come down there? So I come down there with 3 different arrow setups. So when we shoot them, they'll be out of my bow. Because remember, I'm trying to relate this to Brian Johnson, the real world me. What arrow I should use for a pig, which isn't going to jump so much, but maybe need more to go through a shield, or these deer that are super jumpy.
what I would do is I would look at grains per pound. So I would build 3 different arrows. I showed 4. 3 different arrows. And I would build one at 6 grains per pound, 7 grains per pound, and probably 8 grains per pound.
Okay.
And what are you running? 55 pounds. So a 7.2 grain is 396. So let's say 400 grains. I got my calculator up. I can't do math in my head anymore. So 6 grains per pound on a 55-pound bow, that's 330 grains. So build you a 330 grain arrow roughly, build you a 400 grain arrow, and then build you a 440 to 450 grain arrow. That'll be 3 different weights right there. If you want to go to a 4th weight, jump up to 500 grains. So that would give
What do you think I should do? Because we're wanting to use me as kind of the test dummy here.
okay.
My bow, because I it's more critical with my lower poundage.
So what's going to happen if we build them 4 arrows and you shoot? If we're shooting that animal hanging, so we're killing a dead animal, kind of like Ashby did, we're gonna you're just gonna see a difference in increase in penetration. So what you're wanting to do is look at time in flight. You're gonna have
Yes.
reaction. From
Yes.
there, we just shoot them 4 arrows at my and use that machine I've got. So what we would do is my thought, and I'll get with Corey on this, is I was thinking about just setting maybe getting a 12-inch target, one of them ball looking targets. And then what we'll do is we'll set it up, no drop, make sure the arrow is hitting dead center. And from that point, then we'll just start adding time. And then what you'll be able to do is we shoot your 4 arrows and you'll be able to see the difference. Now we'll adjust so that the aim point is always dead center. Okay. But what we'll do is we'll be able to see the drop in it where that arrow's hitting. that make sense?
Can we do better than a 12-inch circle? Brian Johnson, do you have?
Whatever you guys need out of Reinhardt targets, just go check them out and let me know.
Well, yeah, just as long as we could get like I'd say a 24-inch diameter.
I don't know what all Reinhardt has and all these different things he has. He's got NAS targets. We got a real cool one I can tell you that's going to be coming out at the show. Really neat, let alone my
Yeah,
secret animal that's coming out. It's going to be really cool.
just
It,
something
it,
thick enough to stop it from a full pass through.
Well, you guys are going to be at the ATA. You guys know James. Have you met James before, Eric?
I haven't. No, sir.
Well, all you got to do is go over there and tell me you're working with Brian here. Brian, mention Brian Tanner. You're in like Flynn. Mention my name. Check to see what he has that you want, and we'll get it shipped to Texas. The only thing is it takes them forever. How long did it take you, Gavin, to get targets? 6 months?
No, it was over a year.
Yeah,
Well, I take that back.
close enough.
I got targets
It
from
was
Reinhardt
it was
on that.
So,
like, yeah, 7 months.
my do we need a? My thought process was a target the size of the kill zone.
Okay, you
And
you could
we
have the
don't have
kill
to do that,
zone circled on a bigger target because
but we can do that.
with Brian's
Yeah.
low draw weight, and if we're going to experiment with heavier and heavier, and we're going against the gravitational pull of the Earth, where that thing's going to drop quick. So if we have the bigger the better, as long as it's not hitting the ground. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'll stop that.
Yeah,
So,
so
what
maybe 2 foot wide. I'd say.
So my theory right now, or my thought process, is we can take a 24-inch square target. Okay. Now I'll bring a big target that it'll be. I'll have a frame around it. We'll just take a 2x4, set that target on top of that 2x4, and at one end I'll pin it. That's our pivot point. At the other end is we'll just put a string, and I'll put a solenoid that'll drop it. Now we can put another string so that it'll only drop so far. Whatever you want to do, or we let it fall all the way. It doesn't matter. I can control all of that.
Wow.
So, and then
rectangular, and the point of impact, the bullseye can be at the bottom of the target.
we can do that,
or we can have a football field worth of marks.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
on and so forth.
Yeah. I'll take it.
Would it be Corey? You're going to have a hard time leaving your booth, but it'd sure be good if you could go over there with Eric and Brian over to Reinhardt's. But if Eric, when you meet Brian, if the two of you go over there and talk to James, tell him you're working with me. We'll get you whatever you want.
Okay. Yeah, we can do a lot. I just need a little bit of time to sit down and think about it. I can build just about anything you want.
I'm gonna have time to get away.
Are you? It would be good if the three of you would go over there and talk to him. Tell him you're working with me down here in Texas, what we're going to be doing. I haven't talked to him about it, but he'll get you whatever you need.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got my grandkid at the house.
Oh, that makes it personal. That's what it's all about. Good for you. Good for you.
Oh,
Good for you. Now, since we're running out of time, what are the other things you want to do? Because the things that I'm going to bring to this, if we have time, is the examining the animals and a bunch of that stuff. But I do that all the time. And when I'm with you guys are front and center. I'll just be doing my examining the animals on time if I have it off to the side, or if you guys leave early or whatever happens. The primary deal is these tests with these pigs.
Well, it would be nice to get with Brian and talk about it. Like I said, right now, what I want to look at, if we can, it's no big deal. It's just time. Is looking at FOC, momentum base, kinetic energy base, trajectory, time and flight. Then, of course, we want to look at penetration depth. I've got maybe bone type, and I've got some things I want to talk with Corey on that. And then broadheads. Now, I have an old school edge tester. Okay, now everybody's using, and even John Lusk uses that Bess, and I use his material. The tester I have is actually designed by that guy a long time ago. It's called a KN100. Now I have a load cell, so we can test edge sharpness before and after. I just downloaded it on my computer. I can draw the charts with it, show you all the average. We can look at all of that. So we can.
Well, let me ask you this: can you take the lead on all this? Because you like to be very organized. I want to be organized, but I don't know all the stuff that you guys are doing for me to organize it. So can you take the lead on this? That we go out the first morning, we're gonna have 4 hunters out. So let's say we come back with 3 pigs. Let's say we come back with 1. As soon as we're back, boom, boom, boom. Here's what we're doing. for a list of priorities. So if time runs out, we made sure we did the right things first.
Yeah, yeah, I need structure really bad.
But I mean, can you set the structure up though?
Yes. I think I've already sent some stuff out with emails on some of
Yep,
the.
you have. You have.
It'd be nice to get with everybody that's going to be here so that we can go through them, because some of my ideas may not be something they want to look at. We can just add to it, and then once we get that, then we need to sit down before we go and just put them in order. You know.
Okay, one of the other things that you guys have to decide, what broadheads do we use? There's a million broadheads out there. What
Yeah.
do we do? How do we determine that? How do we answer that question?
Let me stop you for a second. The two tests that I think are going to be really good to see, the drop test, that's with the thing that we're going to build, is going to drop that. We're going to see some real good data there. The deflection test, we're going to kill a hog. We're going to get 2 slabs of ribs. We're going to check out the deflection, right? We're going to change the arrow weight, same broadhead, see if it makes a difference. And then your issue, Brian Johnson, Eric and I have talked about this. We think the magic bullet for you is actually something that's very tough for you because your shoulder is to raise that draw weight, because if you're stuck at 55 pounds, you're kind of at a ceiling there. And I think we have to look at your broadhead choice, which ties into what you just said. Broadhead choice. And the last time that we talked with Brian, Tanner, and Gavin, we talked about some potential broadheads. And Eric, I'm going to show you this one here. I told him, I said, from that test from 2018, and my camera's acting funny going in and out. But the kudu point here, for some of my tests, for like the Pierce test and whatnot, this scored extremely well. I think we need something that has very little resistance on while going through. Now, are these broadheads the best? No, it's going to cut a slit, which is not good for bloodletting. And if any kind of hog's got kind of a callousy plate, it's not going to help the bloodletting. But as far as penetration and getting his limited kinetic energy in there, if you focus more of the energy on the smallest point and have the least amount of resistance, 2 blades are better than 3 blades. I think you might be better off with like a single blade like this here.
Yeah.
We should get a list of the different ones for me to, if I hunt for 4 days and I try to shoot 4 pigs, I should have whatever different broadheads they are. So every time I shoot a different one, providing I get them to fly right.
Well,
What I,
for a dead hog too, right?
oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think B3 is builds the old Strickland broadhead, which looks like the kudu.
Uh-huh.
I probably still got a couple around here somewhere. That's a pretty good design. It penetrates good. But I shot a red stag, actually red hounds, I'm sorry, with one years ago. Had a lot of blood trauma in that off shoulder, which means that arrow, that broadhead had a lot of resistance on that part of the impact. But it's a very good head. So that very well could be a very good head for him to try.
We talk about the penetration, the blade angle. This is
Yeah.
very steep. Another one that we talked about, which I've never shot in my life, but was it the shuttle teacock or whatever the hell it is?
Yeah.
That one is steep and then it broadens out. So maybe at the point it broadens out, it already did the hard work of splitting the hide. That was another one that we mentioned, maybe trying, but that's a 3 blade there.
Yeah, that's
So
a 3.
a 2 blade, a 3 blade with like a shuttle T or whatever it is, or something similar. And then maybe the Exodus, which is smaller cutting diameter, but broader blade angle, which, it's going to show us a lot.
Well, I can bring some trifecta. I can bring some VIPs. I have some old test heads from Grizzly Stick. I can bring them. I don't know.
What about, I have people that are offering me broadheads to test, and I'm really scared because I don't have a sponsor. I want to be fair to everybody. Like one of our followers sent something to Gavin called the wedge head.
Yeah.
And that certainly looks impressive to me, Gavin, by looking at it.
I've been playing with it.
Yeah.
Right here.
Well, that's it.
Yeah. So here's the problem about testing. And it's one of the things, and I'm going to talk about the Ashby Foundation. They have done a really, really good job of not accepting broadheads like that. Okay. They buy. And the reason is because what happens to you, I promise you, when you test something that they send you and you doesn't fare well and you show that, they'll be mad at you. I've had lots of people.
Well, I think an open disclosure that since we're wrapping up the podcast is we are going to have a bullet manufacturer down there with us, sometime, which is going to be really neat. He's going to judge with his expertise what the different broadheads do from his perspective because he's not an archer. That's going to be interesting. And he's going to shoot his subsonic bullets, which split into 3, which kill like a broadhead. And he's a very intelligent man. And you guys have talked to him. I know you've talked to him, Gary. So he's going to bring a lot to the table. And one of the leading broadhead manufacturers in the country is 50-50 with him coming down there with us. And he's a mechanical engineer. So, and he knows me. I mean, anybody knows me knows I'm Exodus, Exodus, Exodus. So there's nothing hidden with me. So,
The only thing I'll say, maybe another broadhead to consider, and Eric, does Trifecta have one that has blades that can pivot if it hits a bone? There was a Grim Reaper that did that.
They did. He's not making that one anymore. I may still have one of them.
That would be interesting, right?
So, yeah, I've still got some.
Way if it hits a rib.
Yes. I'll have to watch what I've got because what scares me is I've still got some heads that may or may not ever come out. So I don't know. I'll have to get with Rob and make sure that I can use that head.
And one of the other things, as far as how the broadheads hold up, that I'd like to do, I think I told both you guys, if we could shoot him into the skull, into the backbone, I can take the meat off him so we can still use the meat. I'm going to take back as much pig meat as I can. And then I'm going to put it in my steamer. And we should be able to steam them in about maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. And then we're literally going to get to see them in the actual skull right away. Should really be cool.
Right. Yeah, I'll bring. I even got some old Zwickies I can bring.
Well, I'm looking for the main ones that people are using now. Again, I'm doing all of this kind of representing the general public. The guy that I was with tonight that shot the 27 in a row 300s, you know what he was using? Now he's 74. He's using a Rocky Mountain that they don't even make anymore. You know why? That's what he used for all them years. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. So he's still using.
Well, if you're looking for that, then in reality, we ought to be looking at that new, is it called Speed?
Speed, yeah. The Speed.
Yes, that's very popular.
Speed broadhead, probably a Rage broadhead.
Well, the Beast, I think, is the biggest one.
Yeah, you got the Beast. You've got.
And none of those can work with my set. We know that at 55 pounds.
Well, I don't know. We ought to try out.
I think the Speed might fare well.
Okay, well, we should put them to the test there together. So.
I can find a place that sells it around me. Maybe I just got to go online. But.
Like I said, and I think I've got some VIP broadheads. I'll bring them. That's a pretty good mechanical broadhead too.
So, Gavin, before we go, I know you wanted to keep it at an hour over. Anything that we've missed, Gavin?
I mean, off the top of my head, we talked about some tests. I had a question for both of you. Does anyone know who Tom Miranda is?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Okay, so everyone knows. So he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he talked. I don't know that he talked about it. I haven't seen it, but he made a video answering something they talked about. They're called monkey tails, maybe. It's a weighted fletching system.
Yep, that's old. Yeah, that was a few years back. Yeah.
Has anyone ever tested that?
No.
Monkey tail.
No. So what that one is, Corey, that's the one that I don't remember how long it was. It was a couple inches long. You cut the back, you shorten the arrow by about 2 inches, and you glue this in, and it looks like an aluminum ferrule. And then you take your fletchings, and there's grooves, and they slide in, and then you just put your knock on the end of it. It's about 40 grains. Again, things like that. All right, so I'll do this quick.
Pass through?
Do what?
What is the main goal of it?
Just a different way to set your fletchings on it so you don't have to glue them in, I guess. I don't know.
And it adds weight.
And it does add weight. So let's real fast, I'm going to try to get into aerodynamics and talk about static margin real fast. So what he did was he had a lot of weight at the back, killed his FOC. Okay. But again, if the static margin between the FOC point, which is actually the location of center of gravity, as long as that static margin is good, it doesn't matter what you got back there in the back. You're going to steer. So that was some of the things that they were pushing when they were talking about that, is that it didn't matter. You could shoot a low FOC arrow, so FOC didn't mean nothing. All he did was his static margin was still good, so it flew right. It didn't matter. Would I put weight on the ass end of an arrow? No, not like that. Because if you're not shooting an arrow that has enough reaction on impact, you're going to fold that arrow. In other words, if you got a lot of resistance on impact, whatever type broadhead you are, if you got a lot of weight pushing on the back of that arrow, you're going to cause that buckling effect on that arrow. When you buckle that arrow, you just killed penetration.
I've got a great picture of that, and it's with a G5 Mega Meat, just so
Yeah,
happens, in
yeah.
Africa.
Did it buckle that arrow pretty good, or could you?
Yep, the arrow went through the broadhead.
Yeah, yeah.
Broadhead
So,
stopped the skin.
so if you're going to shoot something with a lot of weight on the tail end, you're going to have to shoot a stiffer arrow, because you're going to have to try to control that buckling, or you're going to have to shoot a broadhead with the least amount of resistance, which takes you back to a good two blade, long sliver style broadhead.
Okay, now
Okay.
we got to go, and I'm going to give both you experts a challenge.
Okay.
Here's the challenge with this Exodus broadhead. I want us to see if there is a better general for everybody. If you had to pick one head that's going to end up being better than this one. So, and I hope we find out something better. So, Gavin,
Um, Last thing, as far as weights, where are we gonna go for weights as far as like what is gonna be our heaviest testing weight? What is gonna be our lightest?
yeah, and
Where are
where
we
do I
going with
buy
that?
these arrows for me? Who do I get to make these arrows for me, Eric?
Eric and I can get together and get you
Yeah.
a shopping list, or I mean, maybe Eric, if you have time, you might be able to even build them for him. But I know you're busy as heck.
Yeah.
Well, I'll pay for somebody to do them as long as you know the person that would do them exactly the way you want when I come down there.
Yeah, we can do different things. I've got a ton of weight tubes. Personally, I think we ought to be building arrows in right around a 400, probably 450 after that. Somewhere in there, build several different weights. I don't see any purpose of building a 650 grain arrow. None. Not in nothing.
All they're
If
going
we
to do
want
is show on the drop test how crazy.
on the drop, yeah, okay, we can do that. Just 650 at the max. Anywhere between 650 for hunting purposes. 500 grains all you need if you want heavy.
You want to be
But
able
we do need to go to the end, like Corey said, though, just so we can show it.
Then if we're going
We
to do,
we need to test the extremes is what
Yes,
we need.
yes.
But we
then
want to be able to have it tuned. That's another huge
yeah,
factor.
we'll just have to work on that. Then at that point, everybody wants to talk about 650. Just build a 650 grain arrow.
But
Well,
the thing, remember the TAPS program. Tony Vernocchi's passed
Uh huh.
on, unfortunately, but that would tell you like the dynamic spine, which I know is not a proper term, right, Eric? But this thing,
Well,
it would take your bow specs, it would take your arrow build, and it would give you like a dynamic spine that it needed. That's one way. If you match all the dynamic spines, then you could go up with that higher weight, and technically you should be able to tune it if that number is worth a damn. But that's the problem. You got to have it be able to shoot that 400 grain arrow perfectly, a 650 grain arrow perfectly. If we don't have enough adjustability with that bow, it might be a little bit of an issue. But and I don't have a gearhead bow yet. I would like to get one. I will talk to Skip. I'll try to get one, but I'm not familiar with them, so I don't know how tunable they are with a wide range of spines. So that'll be a factor as well. So in
mm-hmm.
Wisconsin, Brian, maybe between the ATA and our trip down there, if all goes well, you could bring your stuff down here and we could do some testing with the different arrows. You know.
Well, I'll try to bring three different bows. I'll bring a Bowtech Reckoning. That's pretty adjustable. I'll bring my PSE, my Omen, and then I'll probably bring my Matthews as well.
I've got a PSC Mach 33.
Okay. Okay. Well, I got an Omen with the S2 cams on it. Fantastic bow. I'll bring my Matthews. I'll try to different mods so we can just change mods. and that way we can be changing our output on that bow very easily by just changing mods. That'll be easy to do, and it's easy to tune. So
Okay, how about if we sign off now, but you don't cut us off, Gavin, because I want to talk to them about some other things real quick.
Okay, we can do
We
that.
done? All right,
We can
guys,
do
we
that.
done? Thank you so much. All the podcasts I've done, I am so excited about this. I'm thankful to be alive and doing things, to meet with you guys down there and what we're going to do. I can't, and I mean that for I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm going to be the student. So, all right, thanks.
Looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
Yes, sir.